Hi, I'm here today because, as you mentioned, since 2008 I've had to do it differently because I've got a medical condition that was inherited called Acute Intermittent Porphyria. So I was once described by a pain specialist as being having dealt a really bad hand of cards, but that I was doing the very best that I could with the hands that I've been dealt. And I think that my approach to things comes from the fact that I'm a firm believer in that if you want to do something, you can do it if you try. And I don't know if anybody's heard of kind of Robert the Bruce, and if at first you don't succeed, then try, and you might do. It was kind of something that was said quite a bit in my family when I was younger. I also think that the difference between success and failure is that if you fail at something, or the difference between people who succeed is that you will keep trying until you get there, and you don't mind if you fail, you'll eventually get where you want to be. So what I want to give you an idea of is I've got a really rare medical condition and I am one in 90,000 people. Wembley Stadium on a match day has 90,000 people in its crowd. I'm just that one person with this condition. I really am a needle in a haystack. But I want you to think of not just 90,000 people, not 180,000, not 270,000, not 360, but 450,000 people. I'm one of only 450,000 people in the UK who is affected as severely as I am. So, what is porphyria? It is a medical condition that predominantly is inherited. There are 8 different types of porphyria, classified as acute porphyrias, cutaneous porphyrias, which also affect the skin, and a mixture of both. I'm just going to talk about acute intermittent porphyria, which is the type of porphyria that I have. So I'm going to give you a very kind of condensed insight into what the triggers are, what the symptoms are, and how I'm affected with the condition. So there are lots of different triggers, and once you're triggered with the condition as an acute patient, you then go on to have more symptoms. So I had genetic testing when I was only 15, but didn't develop symptoms till I was age 27. So what are these triggers? They involve various things from unsafe medications, alcohol, so I can't drink, lots of other things from stress, fatigue, viruses, other illnesses, anything really that puts a stress or a strain on your body can have an impact on me. So what are my symptoms? I suffer with acute pain quite a lot of the time. I've got pain now even standing here in front of you all. I suffer with nausea and vomiting, and I need pain medication, sickness medication to manage this. There's also other things. I get weakness, I get confused at times, and if I have a severe attack that goes untreated, I would get permanent nerve damage that would cause paralysis. And if a series of attacks went untreated, it is life-threatening. So, one of the things which I think is interesting to kind of mention is I'm stood here before you, and I probably look perfectly fine to all of you. It's also known as an invisible disease. So, really sorry to do this, but this is some of my urine. Both of these samples were taken at exactly the same point. Sample A was protected from light and put in the freezer. You can see it already has a slightly peachy, pinky hue to it, but the porphyrins which are present in my urine, when exposed to light, they change colour. And it's just quite a nice visible kind of sign to kind of show you that there are some signs, even though you might not sort of be able to see them. So in terms of my medical history, I've ended up in the early stage. I used to have to go into hospital very regularly for treatment, so every kind of 4 weeks, then every 2 weeks, and I spent a lot of time going in and out of hospital, which was really difficult. I now am really lucky that I'm under the National Acute Porphyria Service, and I have excellent medical care. I have something called a portacath, which is fitted under my skin, which means I can get treatments really quickly rather than them having to use intravenous lines on my veins on my arms, which are now quite damaged over the years of intravenous use of medication. So I suffer with pain, as I said, regularly. I suffer with sickness, but this intravenous treatment that I have, I can now do at home, and I have treatments every 7 to 9 days. I did an infusion last night after the dinner that we had here. So it means that I've got a lot more control over my condition. I really wanted to kind of also talk a little bit about my sister, Liz, who has one of the even more severe forms as myself, because they really struggle to diagnose her in the early stages because it is so rare. And she was completely paralysed by the time they diagnosed her. And she's been completely paralysed on numerous occasions and has had to even relearn to walk, had lots of physio. So I affectionately refer to her by the Chumbawamba song from the 90s, if anyone remembers them. Tub thumping, I get knocked down, I get back up again, you're never going to keep me down. And that song really summarises the kind of person that she is. And that has kind of stuck with me because I've mentioned about try, and try. And in my early days at kind of university, I was 18, 19. She was a few years older than me and she was experiencing this. And I thought, if she can do that, if she can relearn to walk and deal with these challenges, I really can do anything. I shouldn't be scared of the exams that I've got. So on my way to my exams at university, I would sing the Jimmy Cliff song, you can get it if you really want, but you must try, and try. And this badge is something that my sister gave to me on my first graduation to say that I did it and I did it good. And I've kept it all of these years in a drawer. So I also think that this ethos comes a little bit from the fact that my family have always said that, or my mum's always said to us, you know, it doesn't matter what you do in life, as long as you work hard, I'll always be proud of you. And I think that ethos has stayed with me throughout my work life and my career and academic life as well. That was always described as being conscientious and trying. So I now want to talk to you a little bit about kind of what it's like to have porphyria. And I'm jumping ahead, I'm so sorry. So I never thought as a result of my condition I would have to change the way that I worked from a really good career that was developing nicely to be made redundant, to then have to go on to benefits, to then only be able to work part-time in a self-employed capacity. I never thought that I would have to go into a wheelchair. I never thought that I would have to have something called a portacath. I never thought that I'd be strong enough to access this portacath myself. I never thought that I would have to campaign for rare diseases and research into the condition that I have. I never thought that I would have to have IVF to become a mummy. And I honestly never thought that I might be able to become a mummy. So in terms of my work, I was made redundant, but I took some time out and I retrained to be proofreader copy editor. I also have a very small photography business that developed more out of a hobby. And I now am privileged to say that I work for the British Porphyria Association, which I volunteered for in 2009 and now work in a part-time capacity. I really love what I do. We work supporting other patients with a condition. We help to support education and research. And I really feel that I'm actually giving back and doing something to help people who are experiencing what can only be described as a terrifying time when you've been newly diagnosed. I also had to go in a wheelchair after a series of bad attacks in 2008, 2009. I couldn't walk very far at all because of weakness and nerve damage, so I had to go in a wheelchair. And I found that really hard mentally to do, but I wanted to do things, so in order to do them, we did it, and I'm pleased to say that I did, and that I managed to then build my strength back up, and I'm now kind of back to full strength again. So I never thought I'd have something called a portacath, and this is a picture of the day that I had my portacath put in, and then a few days later, I do bruise like a peach, but I thought I'd include the picture anyway. It really wasn't as bad as it looks. So this means that I can then have direct access to the treatments that I need, and it's so much less painful than having to try and find veins. I thought I'd explain a little bit about what a treatment is like. So this is me in my living room creating a sterile field because it's got to be done in a sterile way. And then there's me cleaning the port area. And then me once I've put my needle in, which is called a gripper needle. Then drawing up the hemarginate, which is the treatment which I have every 7 to 9 days and which keeps me well. And it's black in colour, and my mum calls it miracle juice because it's kept her two daughters well. And then me sat in my living room having my infusion of hemarginate. So I really wanted to also talk to you a little bit about rare diseases. I'm not sure whether I've got another slide there. I've got a black screen. So I now campaign for rare diseases and research because it's so important as part of the condition that I've got. On the 28th of this month, so in only 4 days, is National Rare Disease Day. And as part of the work that I do for the charity, we'll be helping to campaign. I'll be promoting that I've been here talking as well, because collectively there are more than 6,000 rare diseases, but individually Porphyry is just one of them. And most of you in the room have probably never heard of Porphyria. So together we've got a much stronger voice. I'm also campaigning for research because ultimately a cure will help make my life and my family's life so much different. So I also mentioned that I never thought I'd have to have IVF. and never thought that I'd become a mummy. So in 2013, my husband and I embarked upon what can only be described as a positively grueling and difficult journey to go on. But we had an amazing doctor, fertility doctor, and my porphyria specialist that worked together to develop a series of forms of natural IVF, because I can't have any of the normal medication routes that you can normally have as a result of my condition. Devastatingly, the first attempt of IVF failed, but on our second round of IVF, I'm really pleased to say that I've jumped too far. I'm so sorry. I will just say that as a result of being able to access my own podcast, I can now travel and I can do things that I want, which has given me the freedom to do things like go snowboarding again, go on holiday to places like for our honeymoon, Las Vegas and America. I've done my treatment in tents in France and in other places like Amsterdam. So this is us just before we had the opportunity to go for an embryo transfer, and the phrase, never putting all of your eggs in one basket, has never rung too true. So a few weeks later, my husband was ecstatic to be able to finally announce to the world, be a baby and real baby. And at our 12-week scan, we obviously got the great news that everything was going fine. So we were nervous throughout the pregnancy because I've got a health condition. We had close monitoring. But I am really delighted to say that my little baby daughter was born at 5 pound 2 ounce on the 11th of January 2017, 3 weeks early. And here we are as a family as well. I really am the proudest mummy in the world. I'm so lucky. So I honestly say that I never thought I would be a mummy. I really didn't. It was such a difficult time to be going through, and my heart truly breaks for all of those people who are embarking on that journey or who are really struggling, those couples that are going through things. So what I would really like to do now is do my call to action. If there is something in life that you want to do, or even that you have to do because you're facing something truly unthinkable, try and dig deep and think you can get it if you really want to. Think back to the song which I said, you can get it if you really want, but you must try. Even if it's completely unthinkable or too scary to contemplate, this belief in being able to succeed has fueled me throughout living with a rare disease like acute intermittent porphyria. Ultimately, I'm motivated to campaign for rare diseases and research because it isn't just me who's affected. There's also my sister and my gorgeous nephew Thomas and my beautiful daughter Abby, who all have this gene, as does my brother, and there's a picture of my mum there as well with us all. We all have this gene, and I'm now campaigning with the work that I do as a charity, but also selfishly for myself, because it isn't just about me, it's about my nephew and my beautiful daughter. I want to make sure that they've got every opportunity in life and that they don't need to adapt in the same way that I've had to follow their dreams. Not that I'd really change anything, really. I am where I am and I do what I do with the charity as a result of the gene that I've been given. And I really wouldn't be here talking to you all if it wasn't as a result of this porphyria gene. I have had to do it differently as a result of the condition, but I'd like to say that don't be afraid to do it differently. I've had to and I will continue to do so. So I'd like to say, whenever you think that you can't run that marathon, turn it on its head, think you can. Think instead as well, I will pass that exam and I will get that job that I want, even if you have to do it differently. You can get it if you really want, but you must try. You'll succeed at last. Thank you very much, everybody.